What if I told you there was once a city so magnificent that even after its fall, people still whispered its name with both awe and fear? Babylon wasn't just an ancient capital. It became a myth, a warning, and a dream all at once. Its walls were said to be impenetrable, its temples kissed the sky, and its kings carved their ambitions into stone. Yet today, Babylon is remembered less for its real history and more for the legends that surround it. Why did this city, rivaling Egypt's pyramids in grandeur, come to represent both glory and corruption? And why does Babylon still haunt our imagination thousands of years later, appearing in holy books, revolutionary songs, and even futuristic movies? Let's uncover the hidden chapters of Babylon, the rise, the splendor, the downfall, and the myth that refuses to die. The birth of Babylon. Long before it became a legend, Babylon was nothing more than a small settlement on the banks of the Euphrates. But even its name carried a promise, Babu, Gate of the Gods. That title wasn't chosen lightly. To the people who built it, Babylon was destined to be more than a village. It was meant to connect heaven and earth. In the early 2nd millennium BCE, a nomadic people called the Amorites seized the city. Through shrewd alliances and brutal wars, they transformed Babylon into a capital. Within a century, its influence stretched across Mesopotamia. Canals channeled life through the desert. Temples and fortifications rose. The city wasn't just surviving, it was setting the stage for greatness. And then came a ruler who would turn Babylon into something eternal, Hammurabi. Hammurabi's rise. When Hammurabi took the throne in 1792 BC, Babylon was still a modest kingdom compared to its powerful neighbors. But Hammurabi had a vision and a ruthless talent for turning allies into enemies. One by one, he crushed rival states, sometimes by military brilliance, other times by betrayal. Within a decade, he ruled a territory stretching across Mesopotamia. But Hammurabi's legacy wasn't only about conquest. He became known as the Great Lawgiver. His Code of Hammurabi, a compilation of more than 300 rulings, set a standard for justice, or at least what justice meant in that time. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, wasn't just a phrase, it was law. From trade disputes to family conflicts, Babylon now had rules carved in stone for all to see. Meanwhile, the city blossomed. New canals carried water to its fields. Towering Ziggurats honored the gods, especially Marduk, the patron deity who would soon eclipse all others. Art, mathematics, and medicine thrived. Babylon was no longer a frontier town. Under Hammurabi, it became the beating heart of Mesopotamia. But as with every empire, glory carried the seeds of downfall. What happened after Hammurabi would test Babylon's survival? A city of the gods. At the center of Babylon's identity was religion. The city didn't just worship gods, it was built to embody them. Looming above the skyline stood colossal ziggurats, layered temples that seemed to pierce the heavens. The greatest of these honored Marduk, Babylon's supreme deity, whose rise mirrored the city's own. This spiritual power gave Babylon influence far beyond its walls. Pilgrims, priests, and scholars poured in, turning the city into a hub of rituals and knowledge. Stories grew around its monuments, none more famous than the legend of the Tower of Babel. Ancient writers claimed that Babylon once attempted to build a tower so high it could reach the heavens. Themselves, the gods, or perhaps God in biblical tradition, struck back, scattering humanity by confusing their languages. Whether myth or memory, this story cemented Babylon as a place of divine ambition and punishment. It wasn't just a city, it was a stage where humans dared to challenge the heavens. But Babylon's myths weren't finished being written. Centuries later, a king would arrive, whose ambition would forever link the city to wonder and terror. Nebuchadnezzar II's Babylon. If Hammurabi gave Babylon its laws, Nebuchadnezzar II gave it its legend. Ruling in the 6th century BC, he turned the city into the jewel of Mesopotamia. Imagine walls stretching over 70 kilometers, so massive that ancient writers claimed chariots could race atop them. The Ishtar Gate, covered in blue-glazed bricks, glittering with lions, bulls, and dragons. To anyone approaching, Babylon looked less like a city and more like a vision from another world. It was during his reign that the story of the Hanging Gardens was born, a wonder so enchanting it was counted among the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Some say Nebuchadnezzar built them for his queen, who longed for the green hills of her homeland. Others argue the gardens may never have existed in Babylon at all, but in distant Nineveh. Yet the myth persisted, and Babylon became forever tied to this symbol of paradise on earth. But Nebuchadnezzar's legacy wasn't only architectural. His armies stormed Jerusalem, destroyed the Temple of Solomon, and carried thousands of Hebrews into exile. For those who lived through it, Babylon was not a wonder, it was a prison. This exile would brand the city in the biblical tradition as the very embodiment of arrogance and oppression. Glorious, terrifying, and unforgettable, this was Babylon at its height. But empires burn, brightest before they fade. Conquests and collapse. For all its splendor, Babylon could not escape the cycle of Mesopotamian history: rise, glory, and downfall. After Nebuchadnezzar's death, power struggles and economic troubles tore the city apart from within. This weakness opened the gates, quite literally, to new conquerors. In 539 BCE, Cyrus the Great of Persia devised a daring plan. His army diverted the Euphrates River, slipping soldiers into Babylon through its drained channels. The city that once seemed invincible fell in a single night. For the first time in centuries, Babylon was no longer free. It was just another jewel in the crown of a greater empire. Yet Babylon's prestige didn't vanish. Even Alexander the Great, after defeating the Persians, dreamed of making it his capital. He restored the temples, honored Marduk, and envisioned a new age of Babylonian glory. But fate cut him short. He died in the city at just 33 years. From then on, Babylon's story was one of decline. Wars, shifting empires, and depopulation slowly drained its lifeblood. By the time the Romans passed through, found not the city of myth, but a shadow of it. Still, the ruins whispered of past grandeur. And in that whisper, Babylon's myth was only growing stronger. Babylon in religion and myth. If Babylon's walls crumbled, its reputation only grew. The city became a symbol reshaped by religion and myth. In the Bible, Babylon was remembered not as a wonder but as a warning. The destruction of Jerusalem and the exile of the Hebrews cast the city as the enemy of God's people. The prophet Isaiah called it the beauty of kingdoms destined for ruin, while the book of Revelation went further. Babylon became the great whore, vision of corruption and greed. For early Christians, Babylon was more than a memory, it was a code. Rome itself was sometimes called Babylon, the empire seen as corrupt and doomed. Centuries later, Protestants would revive this image, pointing to the Catholic Church as a new Babylon. The city had become a metaphor for arrogance, moral decay, and unchecked power. And Babylon didn't just live in scripture. In modern times, it has become a symbol in culture and music. In Rastafarian thought, Babylon represents the oppressive systems of the Western world. In films like Metropolis or Blade Runner, towering futuristic cities echo the grandeur and the darkness of ancient Babylon. Babylon may have fallen, but in religion and art, it became immortal. Babylon's modern echoes. Even though its ruins lie silent in modern Iraq, Babylon refuses to fade from our collective imagination. Every generation seems to reinvent it. To some, it's a lost paradise, home of the Hanging Gardens, a dreamlike wonder that may never have existed. To others, it's a cautionary tale of excess, a city punished for its arrogance. In the 20th century, Babylon re-emerged in unexpected ways. Rastafarian culture used Babylon as a metaphor for greed, corruption, and colonial oppression. Musicians sang of breaking free from Babylon, turning an ancient city into a rallying cry for freedom. Meanwhile, filmmakers and writers borrowed Babylon's image to create visions of vast, overwhelming metropolises. When you watch the glowing towers of Blade Runner or the mechanical nightmare of Metropolis, you're seeing Babylon reborn in science fiction. Even politicians and thinkers still invoke its name. Modern Babylons are accused of being too powerful, too decadent, too proud. New York, London, Paris, they've all been compared to that ancient city whose walls once touched the sky. So why does Babylon endure in our minds? Because it isn't just history, it's a mirror. Babylon was more than bricks and mortar. It was ambition carved into stone, a dream of human greatness that outlived the city itself. From Hammurabi's laws to Nebuchadnezzar's walls, from biblical warnings to modern music, Babylon has always been more than a place, it's an idea. It became the city that never really died. Sometimes admired, sometimes cursed, but always remembered. That's why Babylon stands alongside Egypt's pyramids in our imagination, not because of what survives in the desert today, but because of the myths, fears, and hopes that continue to surround its name. In the end, Babylon is mythical because it forces us to ask a timeless question. What happens when human ambition tries to touch the heavens? The ruins may be silent, but the story of Babylon is still being told, and maybe in some ways we're still living in its shadow.